Okay, so the next part of the reporting is cumulative enrollment, homeless, and your RFEP students. So let's first discuss cumulative enrollment. Enrollment is not determined by submitting in a separate file. So it is derived from your student enrollment record from your SCNR. So essentially, when you submit your SCNR at the start of the year to gain ownership of the student, and then submit an SCNR exit at the end of the year, then CalPAS will then determine that the student was part of your cumulative enrollment, right? So what is enrollment? Is are any enrollments that overlap July 1st of the current reporting period. So the reporting period for this year is July 1, 2022 to 6/30/2023, right? Any enrollment that overlaps July 1, regardless if that enrollment from last year's academic year or this year's academic year, will be counted as part of your cumulative enrollment. So any enrollment from last year that goes up to 8/15 will be included. So now there is your adjustive cumulative enrollment. Your adjustive cumulative enrollment is just a subset of the cumulative enrollment. This is essentially all of your enrollments for this current academic years. Any enrollment that starts after July 1st, and normally all of your enrollments for 2022-23 will be considered your adjustive cumulative enrollment. So why are we collecting cumulative enrollment? This is used to as the denominator when computing your suspension rates, expulsion rates, chronic absenteeism rate, and truancy rates. So this is used in the California dashboard to reflect the rates of suspension, expulsion, and chronic absenteeism and truancy at your schools and, of course, the districts. Next one is homeless counts. So homeless counts, if you've been reporting homeless students in CalPADS throughout the year, then of course, you really don't need to resubmit your SPRG file to account for this homeless since the student has already the homeless record in CalPADS. So anyone who has a homeless record from July 1st last year to June 30 this year to be included. Again, fall 1, the cutoff date of homeless homeless students was census day. For end of year, the cutoff date is June 30. So there is a greater possibility that you will have a higher homeless during end of year period. So because you may have additional homeless students reported after census day or after fall 1. Okay. So it is important to continuously update your homeless students, especially if because homeless students are gathering is fluid, right? Student may just be homeless for 1 day or 2 days. And then if you don't report that, then you missed out on potentially reporting the student and also having the student enjoy, I mean, not enjoy, but be able to take advantage of benefits of being homeless, right? You have we were discussing this with Nate, and he found out that okay, if a student is homeless, there is a possibility that a student may benefit from having free bus rides, right? Free school bus rides from their current location. So these are some stuff that you could encourage or at least provide parents or even students to have them report their status, their homeless status or not. Because there's always what term is that? There's always a bad negative connotation when you're considered as homeless, especially if you're a kid, right? But then at the same time, it is also to their advantage that they report their homelessness to be able to take advantage of some benefits as well with regards to the homeless situation that they're in. Okay, so how do you report homeless students? Again, you report them every year. You have to, if a student was homeless last year or homeless this year and will be and is considered still homeless next year, you can always just roll over the old record until such time that they lose eligibility for homelessness, right? But internally, you need to check their eligibility every year. Okay. So any form of homelessness, maybe the student is doubled up with another family, they're in a temporary shelter or in an RV. So all of those types of shelters might constitute homelessness. So it is important that you collect all of this, not just for funding purposes, but of course for the benefit of the student as well. So you have program 191 that you submit for homelessness, and you have to identify their dwelling type and if they are an unaccompanied youth. So another data element that you will be reporting in this year would be your 1-year grad collection for those seasoned LPAS veterans. We normally collect your grads during fall 1, maybe about 2 years before. 2 years ago, we or prior to 2 years ago, we've been collecting that in fall 1 as part of your fall 1 and collection. However, starting 1920, we've started collecting your one year grad collection, or I believe starting last year, your 1-year grad collection is part of your end of year 3. So once you've exited your student with the proper exit, appropriate exit, it could be 230, 100, or a completion exit, they are accounted for under your 1-year grad collection. So that's why it's important that you have to make sure that you send your appropriate exits for students. You don't mark them as E155 and you lose out on this properly reporting your graduates and completers if you do so. So be aware of that, and it also will impact your 4-year cohort collection. Okay. So once you've exited your students this year, you will be used for the 1-year grad collection and the 4-year cohort as well. So it is important that all exits are properly reported for your grad students. Okay, another subset of the end of year 3 collection is your RFEP status. Again, in prior years, RFEP was mostly collected in fall 1. Now, we've switched that to collecting it in end of year 3. So any student who took the summative testing, so these are your EL students who took the summative testing and who completed or passed all 4 criterias with the overall performance level of 4, are considered RFEP students, right? So once the student is RFEP, you have to submit the SILA update for these students to reflect the RFEP status. Okay. And once they are RFEP, if a student is still enrolled at your school next year, then they're no longer required to take the summative testing because this is the terminus status of an EL student. And it will also take them out of the at-risk of becoming a long-term EL. Okay? So RFEP will be coming from your student information system, your SIS. So you have to self-report the students. It will not be automatically sent by TOMS, like your EL or IFEP. This will reside in your SIS and should be submitted to CalPETS. So there are instances where RFEP students may be taking the test during summer, which is outside of the academic year calendar, right? So if a student during summer, and this is after their enrollment or after their last day of school, there is no way to track this in CalPEDS or to include the students unless you report them within the enrollment period that you own the student. So here are some key points you have to remember. If a student was RFEP during summer or after regular school calendar, and you expect the student to return next year, or okay, or if the student is not returning next year, then use the last day of school for this current academic year to mark them as RFEP. So let's say our last days, my kids' last day of school would be May 20, May 26. So that's your last day of school. And then it turns out they need to do the summative testing around May 30, right? They haven't completed it. Once they've completed the testing, then you have to just, but then they're going to a different district next year. You have to backdate the date to the last day of school, which is May 26. That way, you gain ownership of reporting the RFEP credit. Now, if the student is returning next year and they took the test during summer, then you can use the first day of school as your RFEP date. So the goal here is that you have to report the RFEP date during an enrollment period, during ownership. Otherwise, if your RFEP date is in between enrollments, you will not be able to get credit of that RFEP status.